1.8. We'll go to the third game here. Brighton at home to West Ham. Saturday night football. Let's take a look at the betting that we currently have at matchbook.com. You can back Brighton at 1.56. West Ham are 6.2. The draw is available at 4.8. Both teams to score yes is 1.68 with no at 2.3. The Asian handicap line sees West Ham get a goal start at 2.08. And the goal line for this game is 3.5. And that is shaded towards the under. Apologies, 2.5. Shaded a good bit towards, 3.5 shaded towards the under there. So, Mark, stick with you on this one. A fascinating game with Brighton in such good form. Can they keep that going? This seems like a routine enough Brighton win to me.
Possibly. I think they are obviously fair favourites. They're very short price favourites as well here after going 2 from 2. I think they have benefited from playing two teams who probably aren't completely ready for the season ahead, still trying to get themselves together, really. They have been really clinical, really ruthless. After only 2 games, they've had 6 different players who have scored goals. 3 different players have created 2 or more goals. 7 different players have taken 3 or more shots. They're also 1st, 5th and 6th highest chance creators play for Brighton, an XG output of 6.24 and 43 shots. It's been incredibly impressive, despite the rotation as well, because last week De Zerbi left Ferguson and João Pedro on the bench. The new signing who scored as well in the previous week. All 3 of those weren't needed really until the game was won. So he brought Billy Gilmour back into central midfield as well. So, I still think there is room though for them to kind of cover over the loss of McAllister and Caicedo. I still think they might be a little bit weak in that area. Going forward, they're exceptional. No side has a better non-penalty expected goals output than Brighton in the Premier League since De Zerbi was appointed, which is astonishing, really. Bettering Manchester City going forward, that kind of gung-ho, sort of pulsating approach is fantastic to follow. But they do leave themselves vulnerable to conceding goals. In 34 league games under De Zerbi, they've only kept 9 clean sheets. 22 of those matches have seen both teams scoring. Those matches averaging 3.5 goals per game. But, I don't want to go on too long, but just in terms of very small samples, of course. But defensively, I do have slight concerns about them. Luton scored 59 goals in 46 championship games last season. They had 22 touches of the ball in Brighton's penalty area in week 1. Last season, Brighton's opponents had fewer than 22 touches in the box in 27 of their 38 league games. At home to the bottom 3, Brighton only allowed 28 penalty box touches in all 3 games combined, and Luton had 22. And then, as we discussed with the Wolves game, they allowed 16 shots at the Amex, an XG of over 2, 12 shots in the box, allowed 4 big chances to be created. So I think from a West Ham perspective, there are weaknesses in this Brighton team. It's how you can sort of open them up, really. And I think Ward-Prowse's debut for West Ham gives them a lot of hope, not just from set-piece deliveries, but also open play as well. He's a real weapon. We saw the statistic in the game about West Ham's threat from corners and dead ball situations. They scored the joint 4th most goals from corners last season. And we saw against Chelsea, it's going to be an asset for them again. So I think they can hurt them. Ultimately, though, West Ham's away record is why I'm not too hopeful about them, because last season they were demolished here 4-0 by Brighton. They also lost 2-0 at home to the Seagulls. They lost 13 of 19 away last season, 7 of 9 defeats at the top 9. They only scored 4 goals as well at top half teams as well, so that's a concern. But I do think they can oblige in this game. So similar to Adrian in the last match, I had 3 different wagers for this game penned out. Have I picked the right one? I've taken the most pragmatic, as you can probably imagine. I had Brighton and both teams to score at 3.0, which I do think is a big runner at a big price. Huge increase on Brighton just to win, almost double the price there. And Brighton over 2.5 goals is 2.15. But I think for a bit more insurance, I've opted for Brighton and over 1.5 goals at 175. You're basically getting paid out by any scoreline that's not 1-0. And Brighton games don't end 1-0. So I think West Ham can score in this match, but I think Brighton just have too much going forward.
Okay, that's Brighton over 1.5 goals, 1.75, but a couple of other selections as well from Mark that he was thinking about if you are that way inclined. Adrian, just a little bit on the point Mark made about the Luton game. I watched that, and particularly the first half, I couldn't get over how open Brighton were at the back, and if Luton had a bit more quality, they could have taken advantage. Would you have a fear for Brighton's defence going forward? Again, as Mark touched on, again, it is a very small sample size we have this season.
Yeah, based on what I've seen, I would, because they've played weak opponents, haven't they? Let's be honest. Luton will be right near the bottom, and I think Wolves will be too. So, yeah, they probably, but maybe they felt they could afford to play with a little bit more abandon against those teams and and effectively outscore them. Play like that against Liverpool or Arsenal or City, you're going to ship 3-4 goals, aren't you? So, yeah, no, it is mildly alarming, but I think the positives at the moment definitely outweigh the negatives. It's been a really uplifting start for them. And they do like playing West Ham. They've lost none of 12 Premier League games against them. So they're a little bit of a bogey team for the Hammers. So people who believe in all that nonsense and the patterns, that you definitely want to be on Brighton's side. Obviously, individuals are on fire. March, Enciso, Mitoma, fantastic starts to the season from them. As for West Ham, Mark mentioned about the away record, really bad, isn't it? 13 of 19 they lost away from home last season. I wasn't blown away by them against Chelsea either. I think at times, it had that penalty gone in, I think they'd have got beaten. It was a mild robbery, really. It's flattered them big time. They didn't have a lot of the ball and offer that much of a threat from where I was sat. So great result, definitely take it, but I didn't think they were brilliant. And away from home, the reason I've gone for my selection, so I fancy Brighton for obvious reasons. West Ham poor away. Brighton on fire. So we're going to go with Brighton, but I'm going to go for under 4.5 to be paired with it. Look at the leap from 1.56 for them just to win the game to go to 2.1 is huge. And I'll tell you why it's huge, because 2 of West Ham's last 40 games since the start of last season have gone over 4.5. So, 38 out of 40 sees this come in, win, lose or draw for West Ham. They're not involved in many crazy games. That's because of Moyes and the pragmatism and whatnot, and also because they don't have that many goal threats themselves, West Ham. So, yeah, I think Brighton will win, but I don't see them tonking West Ham in the way that they did against Luton and Wolves. So, that's my angle.
And any team that can afford to drop Evan Ferguson for a number of games is a proper decent team.
Every pod, Evan Ferguson gets name checked. I love it.
He's the future £100 million man, potentially going to Arsenal next season, if you believe the report. So,
I'd like to believe that report. Yeah, I'll take it.
he is a talent. Look, we don't have many good players, Adrian, and most of them England have taken. So we're happy to have Evan on board here. So
go on, Declan. Yeah,
we'll go for the pragmative selection from Mark O'Hare. Brighton and over 1.5 goals, 1.75. Adrian with the 2.1 selection there with the under 4.5. And if you do want something at a little bit of a bigger price, maybe pair it with both teams to score, yes, at around 3.0 and one of Mark's selections there too. So we'll go to probably the game of the weekend here, Newcastle at home to Liverpool. People have strong opinions on this game already, but we'll take a look at the betting that we have on Matchbook.com. And Newcastle, heavy favourites here, 2.24. Liverpool, 3.15. And the draws available at 4.0. Both teams to score, yes, is available at a whopping 1.5. It nearly looks like a misprint there on the screen. 1-2 in all money turns. Asian handicap line sees Liverpool get a quarter of a goal head start at 1.98. And the goal line, again, is a high one here at 3.5. Shaded a good bit towards the under, though. So, Adrian, over to you on this one. Newcastle back at home. I got the sense, watching the game against Manchester City, that there was a big opportunity for Newcastle that they didn't quite take, as harsh as that sounds, because it is at the Etihad. There was definitely a missed opportunity, but I guess it shows how strongly and how big we think this Newcastle team is right now, and how they could potentially be challenging for a title, if not top 4 this season.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because as brilliant as they were against Aston Villa, and they were brilliant in that match, they did disappoint at the Etihad Stadium. They didn't really lay a glove on Man City, who I think were there for the taking with injuries and the Super Cup and the travel, etc. So, yeah, but that was the pattern last year, wasn't it? It's Newcastle smash most teams at home. They're very good against the weaker sides on the road, but get them against the better teams away from St James's, and they go into their shell a little bit. So many blanks. Just look at their record last season away to the big boys. So many zeros in the goals scored tally. So that's the next challenge for them. If they want to finish top 4 this season, if they want to be challengers, they've got to be a little bit more confident and adventurous away from home and offer that threat. So, but they don't need to worry about that so much here. It's at St James's Park. The atmosphere is going to be rocking. And I just think that stylistically, or from a tactical point of view, Newcastle are terrible opponents for Liverpool. really are. Newcastle fast start.